Welcome to this week's episode of Good Life Western Sports. I'm your host, Bobby Leanne. We'll keep it here on GLWS as we bring you all the action happening around Rodeo, Nebraska. Spotlight one of Nebraska's top bullfighters, Eli Sharkey, as well as share with you the story of a man who is bringing you the core of cultural heritages to the sport of rodeo. Well, athletes from the Good Life traveled to the National Western Stock Show and Rodeo in Denver. So let's catch up with Pro Rodeo Announcer Jared Slagle as he brings us the Pro Rodeo Update.
Let's check out how things are going for the Good Life Western Sports Cowboys. The all-around title at the National Western Stock Show and Rodeo in Denver was split between two men with common interest, both having Nebraska ties, both wrestle steers, and both team rope together. Thedford's Jeff Johnson wins over $5,000 while competing in multiple events, as does his team roping partner, Ty Talsma, who is a South Dakota native and now resides in Verdigris. The stock show in Denver has been historically good for the Ellesmere bareback rider Nate McFadden. 2018 is no different. Nate wins over 3,200 in the Mile High City, placing 6th in the first round, tying for second in the second round, and ending up 5th in the average. That puts Nate in the top 50 in the ProRodeo.com world standings in the bareback riding. Also breaking into the top 50 in the world standings in the team roping are the pre-mentioned duo of Johnson and Talsma, winning the first round at Denver, good enough for a $1,400 payday, and walking out of the Coliseum 4th in the average of the team roping gladiators for over $3,600 in stones. Over $5,001 in the Rocky Mountain State for Jeff and Ty. Also cash cropping in the team roping in Colorado was healer Levi Tyan for Wallace, placing in the third round. In the saddle bronc riding, former world champion dual citizen Zeke Thurston wins the average at Denver. He was second in round number 1, third in round number 2, and third in the final round. Zeke pockets just shy of $11,000 at the National Western. That sets him 8th in the saddle bronc world standings. Court cheer from Ellesmere ties for the runner-up in Denver. He was also second in the final round. All in all, the many-time NFR bronc rider wins over $5,000. Court is inside the top 25 in the world standings. The boys that twirl the twine, Riley Pruitt from Gehring wins the second round of the National Western with a time of 7.1 and the prize of $3,800. Riley has won $15,000 on the year, and he is the number 2 man in the world standings. He is $14,000 behind the reigning world champion Marcus Costa. We go down to Louisiana to Alexandria at the Amicus Club PRCA Rodeo. Hemingford native Jace Johnson picks up a second-place finish. Jace is inside the top 25 in the world standings of the tie-down roping. Back to Denver we go in the bull riding. Pleasanton's Bart Miller places 6th in the second round with an 84.5-point ride. Also working at the National Western in Denver is veteran bullfighter Court Hunt. The now Gordon resident and Myrna, Nebraska native has become quite the staple at the annual event in Denver. That's going to wrap things up for this week. Tune in next week, hear how our Good Life Western Sports Cowboys and Cowgirls did on the Pro Rodeo Trail. On behalf of Fenolio Boot Company and the Good Life Western Sports, as well as our friends at American Hat Company, my name is Jared Slagle. You stay classy, Nebraska. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, Jared. When we return, we will meet a bullfighter who is quickly climbing the ranks, as well as more information on all the new features coming to Good Life Western Sports, all happening when we return.
L&H Livestock Feed Equipment is the elite manufacturer of quality farm and ranch equipment. Headquartered in Hastings, Nebraska, with dealers located throughout the Midwest. With over 30 years of experience, L&H takes pride in only using the best materials and finest craftsmanship to produce top quality farm and ranch equipment. For more information and to find a dealer near you, visit lhmfg.com.
Welcome back to Good Life Western Sports. I'm Bobby Leanne. Well, let me tell you a little fun fact about this week's Athlete Spotlight. His mother had a big influence on his professional bullfighting career. Yes, you heard me correctly. Eli Sharkey's mother, Echo, has helped produce bull ridings for several years and has even inspired her son in his bullfighting career. Meet Athlete Spotlight, Eli Sharkey.
I'm Eli Sharkey from Ainsworth, Nebraska. I'm 22 years old and I'm a professional bullfighter.
Cornhusker country of Ainsworth, Nebraska, it's Eli Sharkey.
I started out wrestling in college, and that summer after my freshman year, I was at a high school rodeo in Madison, Nebraska, and I pulled my buddy's rope for him and stepped off into the arena and stood in the corner. He got hung up and drugged for a while, and it got bad enough that bull came by me, and I just jumped up and pulled his hand out. And a kid named Rowdy Moon, he's another bullfighter from Nebraska, he looked at me and said, "Eli, you need to start fighting bulls." So I started doing it and I fell in love with it right away. My mom actually kind of got me started in the sport, and when she put on bull riding and bullfighting school, she always kind of wanted me to be a bullfighter, and finally when it happened, she loved it.
Good start. Nice step through right there. Looking good. Nice shot. Turn his back for the bull, stepping through. Look at that. Look at the combos.
Wrestling was my sport all the way until my freshman year of college, and the flexibility part of it helped a lot, and just the stamina part of wrestling really plays a role in my bullfighting. And when I work out now, I spend a lot of time in the gym, and I try to emulate some of those wrestling practices and do the same thing we did there. They're the meanest creatures there are on earth. They're born and bred for hundreds of years to do nothing but hurt people, and so obviously you have adrenaline pumping all the time, but the best guys in the world can find a way to channel that and make themselves great from it. When I first got the call to go to a BFO, that was a huge deal. I got a phone call the morning of from Dusty Tuckness. He's 9-time PRCA Bullfighter of the Year, and I had a voicemail from him and I answered it, and he asked me if I wanted to come to the BFO standalone in Ada, Oklahoma. And it was a $25,000 bullfight. It was my first big freestyle, and I was 7 hours away and had 8.5 hours to get there, and I showed up, and I was the very first bullfight of the day, and I had a world champion and a legend in Lance Britton in my round, and I went big, and it paid off, and I made the short round there, and things have kind of taken off from there. I got my PRCA card this year, and that was a big deal too, working some pro rodeos, and I have my PBR card as of last year too. There's a big bullfight in Ardmore, Oklahoma. It's where they crown a world champion every year. I ended up a 1.5 shy of winning that world title this year, and that's one of my goals for next year. I want to work the NFR before I retire, and becoming the BFO world champion next year is on my to-do list.
Eli ended up second in the short round at the National Western Stock and Rodeo. Well, after the break, Good Life Western Sports meets up with a man who's bringing his core of cultural heritages to the sport of rodeo.
Rockin' Sea Animal Chiropractic is dedicated to helping improve your horse's overall health performance. Dr. Crabtree incorporates chiropractic, low-level laser therapy, myofascial, and nutritional therapy to accelerate your horse's ability to heal and get back in the ring. Rockin' Sea is mobile and travels the state to bring your horse the excellent care they deserve. Call Rockin' Sea Animal Chiropractic today at 402-276-1348. 8 words to remember. We can work on you and the horse you rode in on.
Welcome back to Good Life Western Sports. I'm Bobby Leanne. Well, Tony Gomez remains faithful to his Mexican heritage. In his years, he has produced several chairos similar to a rodeo with several cultural activities. Check out the full story with Tony Gomez right here. In 1963, Tony Gomez came to the United States to get out of the impoverished life he led in Mexico and to find better opportunities for himself and his wife. After leaving Mexico, Tony and his wife made a life in Illinois and then relocated to Nebraska. Although he calls Jackson, Nebraska home, Tony Gomez remains faithful to his Mexican heritage. Each year, Tony Gomez produces a charro similar to a rodeo with several cultural events. The event celebrates the Mexican Independence Day with several athletes participating from Nebraska, South Dakota, Iowa, and Kansas.
I come from Mexico, and Mexico back in those days, in my early years, football and baseball, yeah, they're still there, but the charros or the charreada, which is the rodeos and stuff like that, that was the big sport back then. So when I moved to the States, I always had a dream to own someday on a horse, and do something of that nature, and it took me quite a few years to get out to that point. And in 2005, I rent a piece of land by town, and I build up an arena, and we start have rodeos in the summertime, about 4 rodeos throughout the summer. We compete with Nebraska, Iowa, even Kansas. There's groups that come over and compete. But the most important thing about the rodeo, there's 2 things. Number one, kind of give the younger generation something to do instead of do other things, and most important, to keep the culture, where we came from, and I think that we need to pass this on to our kids. It's nice to continue with our heritage and our traditions, of course. I don't want my kids or my grandkids when they grow up saying, well, I didn't even know where my dad came from, and I don't know what he used to do. So I would like pass it on to them, they keep our tradition and our culture.
Along with spending much of his time producing charros, Gomez started his own successful business, Gomez Pallets, in 1983. The company has branched out to not only repair used pallets and resell them, but to also sell new pallets. The pallet company supplies several businesses in the Siouxland area, Norfolk, and several other northeast Nebraska communities.
When I came here in 1970, started working for IBP. I worked for the meat packing industry for 17 years, and I started my business in 1983 on part-time basis, after working hours, and then I became a full-time, and I started building more product and more product and more product, and I've been here 47 years.
Along with producing charro events and building a successful business, Gomez has volunteered his time in education, politics, and foundation boards. Over the years, Gomez has received several honorary recognitions for his efforts and was recently presented the prestigious Otili Award by the Institute of Mexicans Abroad. The award is given to an individual who has dedicated a great portion of their life and professional activity to preserving the Mexican heritage in a foreign country. Gomez states that it is very important to pass those traditions on to the next generation.
In 1987, I have a phone call from governor of the state of Nebraska, which is my wife answered the phone, and she told me, the governor of Nebraska called you. I said, nah, you gotta be, excuse me, you gotta be nuts. The governor of Nebraska ain't gonna call me. He did, left the number. Yeah, he left the number. So I called him the next day. That was not him, actually, that was the office of the governor of the state of Nebraska, and he wants to appoint me Mexican American Commission, which is some of the, right there, one of those plates. So that's how I start getting involved in politics. Throughout the years, I was the board of trustees for Briarcliff College in Sioux City, Iowa. I was the board of trustees on Northeast Community College. I was the president of St. Michael's Parish, president of the St. Michael's Parish Council in South Sioux City, the Law Enforcement Center, you name it. I mean, there's so many things out there that I don't remember, but I think when you are willing to serve the community and willing to give yourself some of the time to all for the good of the community, that's me.
Tony has played an important role when passing down the culture and history to the next generation. Well, when we return, we want to remind you of the features that are happening here at the GLWS studio.
Are you cool to flex fuel? 1 in 7 Nebraskans is driving a flex fuel vehicle, and many don't even realize it. With a flex fuel vehicle, you can fill up with any blend of American ethanol and gasoline, from E10 to E15, from E30 to E85, at any time in any amount. Look for an insignia on your trunk or tailgate. You might have a yellow gas cap, or check your owner's manual. If you're cool to flex fuel, then look for a flex fuel pump in your neighborhood. Flex fuel blends with American ethanol.
L&H Livestock Feed Equipment is the elite manufacturer of quality farm and ranch equipment. Headquartered in Hastings, Nebraska, with dealers located throughout the Midwest. With over 30 years of experience, L&H takes pride in only using the best materials and finest craftsmanship to produce top quality farm and ranch equipment. For more information and to find a dealer near you, visit lhmfg.com.
Welcome back to Good Life Western Sports. I'm Bobby Leanne. We're making a few changes here at the Good Life Western Sports studio, and we want you to be a part of it and the rest of the Rodeo Nebraska community. As you may have seen on previous episodes, we are taking requests for athlete spotlights. So if you're an athlete yourself, or you have an athlete at home, a son or daughter who wants to be featured, don't fret. Send us an email and we will send you a quick form to fill out so that we can better prepare for your interview. Our team will be in contact with you to schedule that and get it on the air. Secondly, if you have any story ideas, send us an email or a message on Facebook because we would gladly feature it. And thirdly, if you would like Good Life Western Sports to be a part of your upcoming rodeo or association finals, let us know. We would be glad to fit that into our schedule somehow. So if you have any of the above, send us a quick email and our team will be in touch with you. Be sure to join us next week on Good Life Western Sports. I'm Bobby Leanne.